Make it
Truth Frequency Radio.
The heavens are moved by his direction and obey him in peace. Day and night accomplish the course assigned to them by him, without hindrance one to another. The sun and the moon and the dancing stars, according to his appointment, circle in harmony within the bounds assigned to them, without any swerving aside. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed. I thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. And as I often do, I have Cathy Dunson as co-host with me this evening. Cathy, are you there, sister?
I am. Good evening, everybody.
Always a pleasure to have you on board. And we have as special guest Dave Murphy. Many of you know him as Allegedly Dave on YouTube. Dave, are you there, brother?
Hi, Zen. Thanks for having me on.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for joining us this evening. And I wish we were where you were, but it's nice that you can share time with us in your extended vacation away from the UK, and that is home base, right?
Yeah, it is. It's very cold there at the moment. It's nice and warm here, though.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all for wanting to get out and to enjoy some sunshine and some warmer weather. And I know that also it rains a lot there, so the amount of sunshine that y'all receive is quite limited. Is that correct?
Yeah, but you know what? When it does, the sun does come out. It's wonderful. And when it rains, it only rains for a couple of minutes, and then it's sun again.
Oh, well, awesome. Well, that's good. We actually need rain where I'm at. I'm in Athens, Atlanta, Georgia area, and we've had an extended drought this year. So it's always a blessing, though, the way that it all works, the cycle of storm and rain, the condensation, and the way that the Most High feeds the earth with nourishment in that way. It's a beautiful blessing the way it all works together. But
I think there's a bit of there's somebody helping things along. I don't think it's natural that you've got an extended drought and California's an extended drought, and the water has to go somewhere.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there's most certainly manipulation going on, and I've noticed and have spoken out quite a bit about the chemtrail spraying that is occurring daily here, and how they had stepped it up this year, and how that seems to also have a part to play. I don't know exactly how, but certainly there is connection, and I'm daily witness to it, and everybody here is. We see it, but nobody puts one and one together. So, but yeah, I agree with you that there's some kind of manipulation with that regard. But before we go forward, let me give you a chance to share your website, contact, YouTube, anything that you'd like to, and also any projects or shows that you've done lately that you'd like to highlight to the listening audience.
Right. Well, my YouTube channel is dmurphy25. That's dmurphy25. My website is www.allegedlydave.com. Unfortunately, it's not as it was, because it was kind of hacked at one point, and I actually lost the entire site, so I've struggled to put it back up, and so half the pages aren't there anymore. But when I get some time, I shall put everything back up there. And on there was all the projects that I was getting involved in. But I've been kind of heads down lately with my latest research. But one of the projects I'm getting involved in is trying to build a self-sufficient house, actually here in St. Lucia. I'm planning to put together a crowdfunding campaign, basically to prove the designs that I've got for this self-sufficient house. So yeah, I've been working on those things. So I've been away from making videos for a little while.
Well, that is very cool. And with regard to that, can you give us a little bit more detail on the kind of things that you're going to be doing to the house? I mean, is it with solar panels and wind? I mean, I don't know. Can you share a little more on that? Elaborate.
Sure. Well, the house design itself will be a earth-covered geodesic dome design. So,
Cool.
Yeah, but yeah, it's. I don't know if you've been inside a geodome before. There's something about the space that it creates with the geometric patterns that I don't know, has some effect on you. And I noticed when I built my prototype, there are a few animals that are around, and they kept wanting to be inside this dome. It was quite incredible. Yeah, so it's going to be a geodesic dome design with that's semi-earth covered. So basically, the Earth will provide the most part of its insulation. Earth is a very good insulator. So
I heard you say on the show with Rob that you had engineered a way to grow your own food for a year.
Yes. Well, basically all year round. What I did, we were going to build. Let's step back a second. I gathered a whole group of people in this group called the Freeman League at one point, and about 650 people, and we were going to build an eco village, but we kind of got blocked by local opposition. So I basically concentrated on building the basic parts of this self-sufficient house and proving them. So at this point, I've proved all the systems separately. I just need to combine them into one integrated whole. And part of that integrated whole was the food growing area. I built something I called the raised bed square foot garden system, which I tested it in a kind of I can't remember what you call it, but a conservatory. I had a little tiny conservatory in the house I was staying at, and I built this frame which was about 6 foot by 4 foot, and in that little frame I was able to grow enough food essentially to keep a whole family going, and I could grow all year round. So that growing area part, if I include the raised bed square foot garden technology into the house, would actually form not only part of the food growing area, but it will also form part of the water recycling system. As the water goes through, waters the plants actually filter and clean the water, and it also form part of the waste recycling plant. So obviously the waste that's produced, the solid waste from humans, will go into what's called a continuously composting system, which basically comes up with fresh compost after 3 months. So it's all, the house is like one integrated whole where the people actually form part of the house.
Wow.
Wow, that is fantastic. That is an amazing project. Yeah,
I've also you said about solar panels. I do integrate some solar panels into it, but that's not the main source of the power. I have a free energy device that, well, it's free to anybody. They can go on the web and find out how to build it. It's called a Bedini Energizer, and I've been kind of working on those for 8 or 9 years, and I've got a motionless version that literally is a box with coils and stuff in, and it just keeps batteries charged. And I had it running for 3 months, keeping the batteries in my motorhome charged. And all it needed was a very small battery in the front with a solar panel to keep that battery topped up.
Fantastic. Wow, you are just a wealth of information. Can you tell us a little bit about the free energy design? How does it perpetuate the cycle for creating energy? What begins the
Right. Well, it's called a Bedini Energizer, and it was designed by a guy called John Bedini, who just very recently passed away. But what he did was he had a next door neighbour who had a 10-year-old daughter who wanted to build something for the science fair, and he basically sketched out this design on a piece of paper and said, "Build that," and she built it, and it was able to keep a little 9-volt battery charged for 2 weeks or something, while driving a motor around and keeping a light lit. So essentially what it is, I don't know if you remember those executive toys from the 1980s. You know, executives used to have them on their desks, and there'd be things that were swinging around all the time.
Yeah, back and forth.
Yeah. So
yeah, like a pendulum.
Yeah, pendulums, or there were spinning tops that would continue to spin all the time and that sort of thing. Well, what they found was that the batteries would last an awful long time. For the batteries, that normally they'd give out after a few days, but these things would go on for weeks and weeks on end. And what was discovered was that every time, let's say it was a top that spun all the time, the top would move over a coil, and it would literally, the magnets in the top would induce a current in the coil, and the coil would then kick back a pulse of energy that will keep the top spinning. But what would happen was a spike of energy would go backwards into the battery and keep it charged up. So essentially, the Bedini Energizer is an outgrowth of that idea. What you get is a circuit that's 12 volts in nature, but as the magnets on the wheel move around, you end up getting spikes of something like 300 volts that get kind of channeled into the charging batteries.
Wow, that's amazing. Can you give us or if you don't mind sharing, what is kind of the cost of doing such a house, and are you at some point going to be sharing those kind of plans with others, or selling the idea so that others can replicate what you are trying to achieve there? And the other thing is, when do you see it being completed?
Well, I'll answer the first question first. Last question first, sorry. I hope to, by the time I come back here, which will be about roughly the same time next year, I hope to be able to have the funding ready to go. I've identified the land that I think I'll be using over here. So fingers crossed, if I get the funding by this time next year, I'll be ready to go. But now I've forgotten what was the first question again? I've forgotten.
Just how much does it cost to complete your project? Just guesstimate, and are you going to be selling this idea or helping others to replicate?
Right. Well, I think the first prototype, the one that I'll build, will probably cost me about 20,000. But that will be because I'm factoring in mistakes and other kind of rejigging. But I don't see the final design to cost more than 10 to 15,000 to build an entire house.
Wow, that's really cost effective.
Yeah, because one of the materials I want to use is what I call bonded papercrete, which is essentially waste paper with cement or lime, and a bit of PVA to cause them make it waterproof. And what you end up with is a very, very strong material, which is light as a feather, and it's durable, and it's got an amazing insulation factor as well. So
wow.
Most of the materials are very, very cheap indeed.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, we'll have to do a show just on this topic because it's fascinating and there's so much more I want to ask you with regard to this. So yeah, at some other point we'll most certainly follow up on this and as you are progressing through bringing it to completion. But I think that's fantastic and
Well,
kudos to you for endeavoring to do such.
oh, and I did forget the other question you asked. Well, I intend to, once everything's finalised and I've proved everything, the plans will be out for free because I don't charge for anything that I do. So the whole idea is to prove that that something like this can be done and cheaply, easily, and that we're not constrained to living in these these concrete boxes in these huge cities. You know, we for next to nothing, you can build yourself a decent place to live, and that allows you to live free of the system.
Well, I think it's also fantastic that it replicates the whole enclosed world system as far as the creation as created for us by the Most High God, and so that in itself it makes it very interesting to me as well. And
Well,
so
I wrote I kind of wrote a book when I started waking up. I wrote a book that I never published, but it was to figure out. I was basically trying to figure out what was wrong with the world and what was wrong with me, and the solution that came out of the book is essentially that house. That essentially, if you have a house that basically generated everything that the inhabitants needed, but slightly to excess, and share those resources automatically with all the neighboring houses, then you end up with this kind of bottom up network rather than this top down network that we're living in, where so every house is like a server on the internet. It's got its resources and it's sharing its resources with everybody else, so that the more people in the system, the more there is to go around, rather than the opposite that we're used to now. That the more there's in the system, the less there is to go around. And if anything happens to the server, providing us with the resources, then nobody gets anything.
Right.
We're all at their mercy now.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. We're using a paradigm that in the computer world is kind of old hat, even though it's coming back. The mainframe and the dumb terminal.
Yeah, we're the dumb terminals.
We're the dumb terminals. We've got no power ourselves, and we just have to wait for the server to give us what we want. But the internet model is, and we all know how powerful the internet is. Well, that is that every server on the internet is got its own resources, and it's providing those resources to the web, so that if half the internet went down, the other half would stay up and be available to everybody.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I know the powers that be don't like that, but yeah, that's wonderful. I'm totally on board with and a question, was there any reason why you didn't bring this book to print? Because it sounds really interesting.
Well, because I was writing it when I first started to wake up.
Yeah.
And so I was researching like crazy.
Yeah.
But it was early days for me, so I kept coming up. I kept coming up with not solutions, but coming up with ideas and the reasonings for things which were inaccurate because of my low level of knowledge at the time. But by the time I'd finished the book, I realized the premises that I started with the book were wrong. So, I just felt like I'd end up having to rewrite it again, and then I got to the idea, well, rather than write about stuff, I want to be doing stuff.
Yes. Well, let us know, because we've got a publishing company, so if you ever need help with doing that, I think that would be a very interesting book to release to others. But I do understand about having to rewrite it. It's a lot of work. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Zen's
yeah,
pretty fast though. He's getting
yeah,
good at it.
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
I
fast
noticed.
at it. Yeah. Well, anyways, let's talk a little bit about your life and just about your coming to awakening. What led you to discovery of not only flat Earth, but other aspects, conspiratorial aspects of what's going on with world. Just kind of a little bit about yourself and your testimony.
Okay. Well, actually, there's a video out on YouTube. It was one of mine that's called My Spiritual Journey, which basically tells the whole story. But I was actually living in America. I was living in New Jersey at the time. I moved there in 1997, and I was deep in the matrix. I was working on Wall Street as a programmer for some of the biggest and most evil financial companies in the world. Well, strangely enough, it seems like I've been guided along this path that basically put me in the right place at the right time to experience certain events. So I was nearly in 9/11. I literally turned down a job in Lehman Brothers on the 40th floor of Tower 1 about a month just before the 9/11 happened. And for the first time in the 15 odd years that I was living there, it was the only time that I ever worked outside of the city and away from, downtown, right, where ground zero is. And I actually took a job in Hoboken, literally right across from the World Trade Center. So the universe, or the creator, basically put me in the middle of the whole Y2K situation, then 9/11, then the financial crash, and it was showing me stuff, it seemed, and I didn't wake up straight away. A whole bunch of things happened all at the same time. I had my midlife crisis, and at the same time, I was helping my daughter with her physics homework. And the problem was there was a marble on a tabletop, and the tabletop is 1 meter high. How long does it take the marble to hit the floor? So me and my daughter were trying to figure out what the answer was, and did a few examples. She said, "I've got it, Dad, I've got it." I said, "No, I'm going to give you one more problem. Let's say it's a bowling ball and it's on the top of the World Trade Center." So we kind of worked out how high the World Trade Center was and worked the problem out. And it came out to be about 10 seconds. And, a light bulb went up over my head, and I started looking back at the videos of the event, and that's it. I had a contrary view to what the official story was, because there's no way a whole building can fall down the same time it takes a bowling ball to drop off the roof.
Right.
So at that time, I thought I was the only one who knew something. And I was
how did we miss that?
Yeah. So, but then later on, it was like I discovered all these websites and all these videos of people saying, "Oh no, it's all an inside job." Mm-hmm. So that's when I really started to wake up, and I saw, I started researching the whole New World Order thing, which came out of 9/11, obviously.
Right.
And then I moved into the monetary system, and that kind of led me into health, because I remember it clearly now. I was reading a book by G. Edward Griffin about the Federal Reserve, and I thought, well, I wonder what else this guy's written. And it turns out he wrote the book called A World Without Cancer, and again, that was an eye-opener. And I started looking at all things health, and which was good because I was desperately unhealthy. And I basically healed myself with the knowledge that I got from researching. But I've literally been on a roller coaster ride of self-discovery and discovery of the world. And, I ended up. I thought I'd got to the final frontier, the biggest lie of all, and that's why I called my video about the flat Earth the biggest lie of all, because that seemed to be, there couldn't be anything, more fundamental than lying about the shape and nature of our Earth.
Right.
But it seems that while I was researching the flat Earth, I found an even bigger lie lying underneath it. So, I think we're on, those of us who are in the truth movement, the thing we have to be aware of is getting stuck in one truth or another.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, hold on, everyone. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. Wanted to give you chance to continue with what you were going, but also I wanted to ask you, you had said that you were able to heal yourself or to cure yourself by the knowledge. Can you elaborate a little bit further on that as well? And please continue, Dave.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I was actually because I was living in New York or New Jersey and working in New York, my diet was terrible. So I put on so much weight. I was nearly 20 stone, which is something like 285 pounds. I had chronic asthma since I was a child, such that my lungs were the lungs of a 70-year-old. I had nerve damage in my foot. Pain up the back of my leg from an Achilles tendon operation. I had a whole list of things wrong with me: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, you name it, I probably had it.
How old were you then?
I was about 42 to
Wow.
45, something like that.
Yeah, that's a lot wrong for that age.
Yeah. But I started looking at alternative health. Because I couldn't bring myself to start taking the pharmaceuticals. They gave me a whole bunch of pills, which were kind of like promotional giveaways. But the doctor basically said in kind of more pleasant, euphemistic terms that once I start taking them, I'm hooked on them for life.
Right.
So I didn't really want to go there. So I tried a few things, many with no success whatsoever. But I went to a festival, and there was a woman there who was talking about urine therapy. And, I went in there with 4 of my friends. We were arms folded, like, tell us about drinking your own wee lady. And and after her talk, we came out, all 5 of us, we came out and we said, we're going to have to try this. And we all tried it the very next day. And to my knowledge, that was about 5 or 6 years ago now. All 5 of us are still doing it. And we've all had our lives transform dramatically. I was on urine therapy for about a year, and I started a 30-day urine fast. So basically I wasn't eating, I wasn't drinking any water for 30 days. I did, have a mouthful of water every now and again when I was drinking the urine, because it was still kind of new to me. But I didn't drink or eat anything generally. And in that, I think 4 days into the fast, my lungs repaired themselves. One day I was taking a walk, and I got the urge to run, and I ran for half a mile, and I got to the end and I was still breathing. I was like, what's going on? And at that same time, I realized that nerve damage in my foot had gone, and I couldn't feel the pain up the back of my leg anymore. I literally, in that 30 days, I dropped something like 7 belt notches. So much so that my girlfriend at the time who I hadn't seen for a week, was like shocked when she saw me after a week. She said, "Well, where are you? Where have you gone?" So yes. After using urine therapy and trying a few other things out, I basically came up with essentially 4 things that you can do and to heal yourself of anything. And essentially, it's all about not doing anything at all. It's basically stepping back and letting your body do its job, essentially. Because everything that we do in this culture is basically the opposite of what the body wants you to do. So I ended up writing a book about that. It's called the Human Body Owner's Workshop Manual. And it basically goes through the various processes. And if anybody's interested, there is a video on my YouTube channel called the Human Body Workshop, which I kind of go into details of how it works. And at the end of it, I show some of the people who've gone through the program that I put together. Essentially the video of the people at the end is basically the side effects of this program. Every one of them started to do it because of some illness or affliction. And along the way, they discovered that they were getting younger and fitter and stronger. So that's what the end of the video shows. Sorry, I didn't. Did you say something?
No, I didn't. But it's amazing. I had no idea, and I certainly was not expecting the answers that you gave me. But
I heard him talk about this on Patricia's show, and that I still believe is her highest rated show of all.
Right. Well, certainly, an angle that I'm not familiar with. Usually people will say, well, I started eating all fruits and vegetables, but was it difficult? I mean, because I've never heard of such a thing, but I would assume that in doing a 30-day fast, were you not ever lightheaded or passing out or
not
dehydrated or
Not at all, especially not dehydrated, because you're taking in your own urine, which is just basically recycling yourself. But no, I had masses of energy. In fact, on day 14, I think it was day 14, day 14, I decided to do an experiment, and I scheduled an entire day of hard physical labor. Mm-hmm. And that was my prototype geodome I was building at the time. Mm-hmm. I literally spent the day carting all the pieces, like 2 meter lengths, maybe 200 of them, 2 meter lengths of wood. I carted it all out about 200 yards to the site I was going to build it on. I put the whole thing up. I spent a few hours measuring it and doing some calculations and that, and then took the whole thing down and took it back in again, and did some yard work and all that sort of thing. But I literally didn't stop 1 minute for the whole day, and I still had bags of energy at the end of the day. So no, it was amazing.
Wow, that is pretty amazing. One last question with this regard. Is there a special way to prepare? I mean, are you filtering, or what are you doing, or do you just set it off to the side? I mean, what does that entail?
Okay, normally what I do get people to do is drink twice a day, and what you do is you capture it midstream. So you let a bit go at the beginning and capture it midstream and let a bit go at the end. And if you end up with a glass full, you drink most of the glass, but you leave a little bit left over so that you can wash with it. And when I say wash with it, it's basically pouring a little bit in the palm of your hand, taking a section at a time, like an arm or something, and massaging it into the skin until it completely absorbs. and it will completely absorb into your skin. It's not like water, because you'll kind of push that around the surface and then you have to towel it off. But with this, your body recognizes it and it will absorb straight into your skin, and it puts the elasticity back into your skin, and it also helps the skin to dump toxins. So your skin is the biggest toxic eliminator of your whole body. So when you put the urine on, it will actually pull out any toxins in your skin, in the same way that if you had a jellyfish sting, you've probably heard about this.
Yeah.
You have a jellyfish sting, you wee on it, and your wee will start to pull out the jellyfish toxin. Well, it works for all toxins. So it's really amazing for your skin. So yeah, that's basically what you do. You do the first one of the morning that way, and then drink again late afternoon, early evening, but not too late, because one of the first things that you'll notice is that you'll get a burst of energy and a feeling of well-being after drinking it. And if you have, you've had the urine sort of too late at night, it will keep you up if you're not used to it.
All right. Well, we're gonna have Cathy try this out for about a week or so, and then yeah. Okay. Well, we'll just go with that. Just make sure you keep copious amounts of notes, Cathy.
Okay.
Well, I often get people to actually, first of all, take a photograph of themselves before they start, and to keep a little diary, because one of the first things you'll notice is a healing crisis, what's called a healing crisis, where the toxins have to come out of you somehow. So they'll come out in, well, all sorts of different ways. So it might be that you'll get spotty, or your hair will get greasy, or you might have headaches, or you might feel tired, or some old ailment might seem to flare up. But all that is the toxins coming out of your body. And it only lasts for 3 to 5 days. And then once the toxins, or the great part of the toxins, are out, then the healing begins.
Okay. Well, one other question, as far as the people that you know that have gone in and began such therapy, what kind of things were they contending with? I mean, what kind of things did they cure themselves of? I mean, was it like stage 3 cancers, or
stage 4 cancer?
Stage 4, yeah, wow.
Diabetes, Parkinson's disease, you name it. I've in my book, there's I asked for some of the people I've helped for testimonials, and I got loads and loads of them. So I basically put about 20 of them in the book, with the people's email addresses, so that people can contact them. But it's a wide range of things. I'll give an example of one of them, the Parkinson's disease. It was a man who was shaking so violently that he couldn't hold a cup of tea or anything, and he'd been like that for quite some time, I think a couple of years, and he was pretty much bedbound, because he didn't go out anywhere or anything. So I put him in a program, and within 3 months, all the shaking had stopped, and he'd got his life back. He was out all the time, and he was, people, I think his family was saying, he's getting too much for him now.
Well, that's interesting.
Well, I would say, having watched you again today on the Malenko interview, I mean, your level of clarity and, you were just able to go through all these points on flat Earth, just right on top of everything, and you look the epitome of health. So, I mean,
thank you.
That's a testament.
Yeah, well, I before I started, I looked like I was going into my 60s. But since I've done all this, well, the best I got is like 32. So that's not bad. I'm actually 53 now.
Well, that's amazing. Well, let's go into your flat Earth awakening and what led you to to question and to begin the research and investigation of this as topic. Did you, because I know so many of us in being confronted with it, I was completely hesitant and unwilling initially to even dedicate any of my time, because, I do value and relish my time, and I'm so busy with so much that I did not want to commit even one day to looking into it. But once I finally did, the floodgates were open.
Yeah. Well, like many other people, I wasn't expecting to to come across the flat Earth. In fact, I was researching something totally different. I can't actually remember what it is now. So I was researching something completely off topic, and there was a video. I'm not sure if it started automatically, but this video came up before me, and I couldn't work out what he was talking about. It was talking about some esoteric experiment or other, and then it dawned on me that the person was talking about the flat Earth, and I was literally just about to turn it off, and he started talking about the old Bedford Levels experiment. So you know about that experiment?
Yes, parallax. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that just caught my attention, and because I didn't know that over 6 miles the drop should be like 16 feet or something, and I thought, well,
right.
Surely the world's bigger than that. It shouldn't curve that much. So I started looking into that curvature calculation, and I found some other videos. But there weren't that many at the time. There weren't that many. There seemed to be about 40 videos or something. I think it was like the end of 2013.
Oh, wow. So you've been on the forefront for a long time, because it wasn't until 2015, I believe, that I woke up to this. So, yeah, you were well ahead of the game.
Yeah. Actually, no, sorry, I might be mistaken. I think it was the end of 2014. It was October. Yeah, it was October 2014. And but still, nobody was talking about it, it seemed. Mm-hmm. And I started kind of amassing all this sort of information. And I don't know, I couldn't talk to anybody about it because nobody was talking about it. And every time I said anything about it to anyone, everyone just laughed at me. But then Mark Sargent put out his Flat Earth Clues, which was really cool. Despite what anybody says about Mark, those Flat Earth Clues were pretty well done, and they were kind of eye-opening. And after watching it, I got the courage to actually put all the stuff that I'd collected together and do my own video.
Awesome. Yeah, those Flat Earth Clues were a game changer for a lot of people. I know in my awakening to this as topic, they were one of the first sets of videos that I did look into and was quite intrigued with, and it encouraged me to look further. But and what were some of the other things? You said that you were led to the Bedford Level experiment, which, for those that don't know, you can find that in the Zetetic Astronomy, the book put out by Parallax. Samuel Burley Robotham, and he did a test on a canal in England that was 6 miles long to check the curvature, the rate of curvature, and how, if it was measurable, and found it to be non-existent. So, but please continue, Dave.
Well, interestingly, a whole bunch of us, about 50 of us, actually went back to the Bedford Levels to, repeat the experiment. We had a kind of, it was more of a get-together. It was because there weren't any other get-togethers for flat earthers, and with all this knowledge, the thing that comes out most amongst us is that we don't have anybody to talk to about it. So we needed to get together and have a good old chat about it, and thought it might be really good to meet at that sort of historic place and try and recreate the experiment. And
Very cool.
yeah, it was a really good day. And even though we didn't do the experiment as as rigorously as we'd like to have done, because one thing we found was that the canal hadn't been maintained. It's probably one of the only canals in the country that hasn't been maintained, so that the reeds were actually growing out into the middle of the canal. So from the water, there was no way that you could see all the way through the straight canal. So we set up cameras and stuff on the bridge, and I said that if we could see our friend Matt, who was in the canoe that was going up the canal, if we could see him from the bridge, over the full 6 miles, then I was going to jump into the canal with waders and see if I could see him from the from the water surface. Mm-hmm. But we kind of lost him at about 5.5 miles, because the weather was, it was alternating between hot and sunny and stormy, so there was a lot of humidity, and it showed because we were getting that kind of reflective, the inverted reflection of him as he started to disappear. But the great thing that I think was important to say that we proved was this myth that you saw boats go over the horizon.
Right.
Because we were looking at the canoe as it sort of paddled away, and after about a couple of miles, he started to disappear to our eyesight. But we could look down in the viewfinder of the P900s, the cameras that we brought, and there he was. So he hadn't disappeared over the horizon. So that myth has been completely busted.
Right. He just reached the vanishing point as far as the naked eye.
Yes.
But when you were able to use the camera equipment to zoom in on him, you could see that he didn't go over the curvature, but that just had reached the vanishing point.
Sure. And that reflective sort of inverted reflection that we would get, which would have been the sort of warm air rising off the water. What that did was make it appear like the bottom of the boat was disappearing. But again, that wasn't what was actually happening. As soon as you looked at the camera, you could see the whole image without distortion. Well, not with a little bit of distortion. So yeah, that was a pretty good day, and we didn't get the results that would have liked, but at least we did get results. But
I just wanted to insert, if anybody wants to see a video, is on your channel.
Yes, it is.
Yes,
it is. It's there are a few videos out there if you like to search for them, because quite a few people had cameras and recorded the event. I also went to Hungary to participate in another experiment, which was a laser experiment across Lake Balaton, which is a large lake in Hungary. I think it was prompted by a disinformation piece made by Stephen Hawking on the BBC, where they fired a laser across a lake, and they were chasing after the beam with a helicopter, and I'm doing air quotes here, they proved that the Earth curved away from the beam, and the beam got higher and higher. So we went to this lake, and we got this industrial laser with industrial high-grade collimator to keep the beam nice and tight, and we had a speedboat with a board on the back, so we could, activate it for the laser. and fired the laser across the lake as soon as it got dark. And we started chasing after the beam with this speedboat. And one of the amazing things that we found is that the beam would actually curve upwards. It would go along for a certain distance and then seem to curve upwards, very sharply. Mm-hmm. As we were in the boat, we kind of saw this happening. We saw the beam kind of steadily rise suddenly up the target, and for one minute we thought we were proving the globe, but we kind of surmised that what was happening was the beam wasn't completely level when it was hitting the water and bouncing off the water, but we tracked back along the beam, and we couldn't. It never touched the water. So what I basically think was happening is that Lake Balaton is only about 1 meter deep, throughout the entire lake, and right close to the surface, it's the humidity levels are very, very high. And I don't know if you've seen a video on YouTube where somebody fires a laser through an aquarium and starts putting sugar into the water. And as the water gets saturated with the sugar, the beam all of a sudden starts to bend downwards into the bottom of the tank. So what I think is it was going through so much humidity that suddenly it started to refract.
I do believe Cathy shared that video with me. I don't remember the name of it, but all right, we'll be right back for second hour. Back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed. I have as co-host with me this evening Cathy Dunson and special guest Dave Murphy. Dave, let me turn it back over to you, and if you would, speak about some of the other things that immediately stood out to you in doing the investigation, in your looking into Flat Earth as topic, and some of the other things which led you to understand that most certainly we had been lied to when it comes to the Copernican heliocentric based system that we've all been indoctrinated into.
Sure. Well, one of the amazing things about researching the flat Earth is that you become a scientist yourself. Yeah, you also start looking at the world around you with different eyes, with new eyes. I can't look at the moon anymore without wondering what the hell that is.
Right.
Every time I looked at something, I would start asking questions. Now, one of the big things that has come up. I personally think this is the one key thing that can't be denied, that absolutely without doubt proves that we're on a flat motionless plane, and that came out of me looking at the moon and realizing that it seems to rock backwards and forwards as it moves across the sky. Somehow it seems to rock backwards and forwards. It doesn't stay in the same orientation throughout the night. And I thought, well, how can that be? If the moon is actually spinning once on its axis as it turns around the Earth, then there's a kind of gyroscopic effect that's going on. And so rocking sort of from side to side, can't happen if it's actually turning sort of at 90 degrees from that rocking motion. But I was kind of looking into it, and it didn't seem very convincing, so I kind of dropped it. But that started me looking at gyroscopes, and while I was preparing for the trip to Macedonia to speak to Milenko, I was trying to come up with some flat Earth proofs to talk about, and I started looking into the gyroscope, the proof that I came up with there was that when you get into an aircraft, the aircraft has a artificial horizon, which is based on a gyroscope. And when you spin a gyroscope, it literally is rigid in space. That's the term, rigidity in space. It's a property that it has. It means that it will remain in the orientation at which you spin it up at, regardless of gravity, regardless of its position on Earth. It's rigid in space. It's got no reference to anything. It will stay in that orientation and it will resist you trying to move it. So that's what makes it ideal for remembering where the surface of the Earth is in a plane. So when a plane gets ready to take off, it essentially speeds up the gyroscope and spins it, level with ground. Then it takes off and it levels out. So while it's flying in at straight and level flight, the gyroscope is still upright in respect to the ground. Now, if the plane was actually following the curve of the Earth, as the plane rounds the curve, the gyroscope would stay upright. So the artificial horizon would look like it's starting to roll backwards, but it doesn't, because it's actually flying over a flat, level surface. Now, I asked the pilots of the last flight I was on before I went to see Malenko, and they're quite happy to talk to people, actually. Obviously not on the flight as itself, but they're happy to talk to you after the flight ends. So I asked the stewardess, and they were quite happy to talk to me. And I sat there and wrote down a whole bunch of questions, when really I only wanted to ask one question. So I asked them if they ever see the artificial horizon roll back on them when they're flying straight and level. And they said no. And I said, well, why not? Because won't it follow the curve of the Earth? They said, well, no, it has complex electronics in it to sense where it is on Earth and compensate. But I'd already contacted the manufacturer and found out that literally these artificial horizons, at least the mechanical one that's the backup to their electronic systems, that is completely mechanical. All there is in it is a gyroscope that's mounted on gimbals so that the gyroscope really move. And that's it. Nothing else is in it. It hasn't changed in basic design since planes started using them.
Right.
So there's no complex electronics in it. There's no compensation. It's literally rigid in space and showing that they're flying over a flat level plane. Right. But also, if you really think about it, there's another experiment you can do, and there are a few people who've done it on YouTube. If you get a gyroscope, and you can get some high quality ones that are powered by motors now, and you set it spinning on the tabletop, and you can actually put a kind of compass, when I say compass, the protractor with the degrees on it. You set it, the gyroscope, so it's pointing in a certain direction, and set it going for 6 hours or so. Well, because the Earth is supposedly moving, as the Earth moves, the gyroscope should compensate. It should stay still and seem to move in respect to the Earth's motion. Right. But it doesn't. It tells you that the Earth is motionless.
Right.
So right there, that's all you need to say that the Earth doesn't move and it's flat.
Yes, absolutely.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, the other thing is that the scientific experiments which verify that as well, like Sagnac and Aries failure, the Michelson-Morley Yale experiments, and there's numbers of them now, and they all affirm the same thing, that the Earth is most certainly without motion. There's no spin, no orbital motion. It's not going around the sun, and it's not spinning once daily to create the visual perception, perspective of the sun going down and also rising. That all of that, as far as what we see prospectively, is not created by the Earth rotating or moving. And so we have to come up with different ideas for, what is creating that as phenomena.
Yeah, it's funny because on my desktop I've got a picture of the sun rising over Lake Balaton actually, and I'm looking at Cathy's avatar there, and it's got it's almost the same picture, but the sun is much smaller in Cathy's picture than my picture. That shows you that the sun actually doesn't sort of spin around the Earth, or the Earth spin around the sun. It's literally the sun gets closer to you and further away. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But those experiments you mentioned, well, hardly anybody's ever heard of them, because as soon as the results came out of them, they're buried, or somebody debunks them, and then in the case of the Michelson-Morley experiment, somebody like Einstein is drafted in to come up with a plausible answer for it.
Right.
So yeah, nobody's actually heard of these things.
Well, and I think if you look them up now, they turn them completely on their heads in like Wikipedia, I have, and it just doesn't make sense to what I know to be true about the experiments.
Yeah. In fact, Einstein, and I was an Einstein fanboy. I spent as much time as I could finding out, trying to understand how the theory of relativity worked. Actually, Einstein's Universe by Nigel Calder was my favorite book. I'd read it about 4 or 5 times, and I got quite a good handle on relativity. And when that, don't know if you remember LIGO.
Yes.
Right. Well, when LIGO came out, I found out about it in 2008, and as soon as I figured out what LIGO was doing, I actually sent a question in to Ask a Physicist. And this is a website that physicists sort of fall over themselves to try and answer the hard questions that people send in to them. And, usually they're very kind of prompt with their answers. But I asked a question about LIGO. How could it possibly detect gravity waves when gravity waves act not only in space, but space-time? Which means, according to the theory of relativity, that if space is contracted, time slows down so that the speed of light stays exactly the same. So if gravity waves are being detected because of the contraction of space using lasers, which is what LIGO does, then how can it detect any change in that the distance that the laser detects? Because the laser is going to slow down to compensate for the shrinkage or the expansion. So it will never detect a gravity wave. And if it does detect a gravity wave, it's saying that Einstein was wrong, which means trying to detect gravity waves won't work. So it's a big sort of contradiction. And I never got an answer.
Oh, you never got an answer.
Right.
Why did they demonstrate their evidence with a chirp? Or I guess it was 2 chirps. Do you know the answer to that?
I don't, but I had to show something. I mean,
right. Well, yeah.
What could I do? We'd only go so far with CGI. We've already seen their CGI. Nobody's going to buy that. But so they had to give you something.
They did an animation and said, "Here's our proof." Chirp, chirp. But yeah, I had noticed that there was a lot of money that was on the line when they did have their discovery. They had to justify their new funding, and it also was timed with this explosion in flat Earth, so it seemed appropriate that it happened then.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, I got to know about it in sort of 2008, and what's that? I mean, that's that's nearly 8 years or so. It's been going. 8 years of all that money being thrown into it, and it's not produced anything. So they had to come up with something, and obviously they're not taking all that money and putting it anywhere. I mean, where's all that money going? They set the experiment up. What do they need any continuing money for?
In your documentary, I noticed that one of the things you had mentioned, which absolutely affirmed to me that NASA could not be trusted, is you show the Apollo 11, where they were trying to perpetuate or to get the public to believe that the Earth was spherical in shape, and how they were using the window of the lunar module as the roundness of the window as a way to project this and support it in ideology, which when I saw all of that in the first place, immediately what came to mind was, if the Earth is indeed a sphere and round and globular, why would they need to fake it? And so my question to you is, in speaking, because now you have been very outspoken and have done a number of shows which have gone viral, where you're talking about and supporting and teaching others about this. How do you approach people that are new, that have never looked into, studied this? How do you break the ice with them and reach them in a meaningful way? Because I know that's a big question that a lot of people ask with regard to this being, how do you approach people and break the ice?
Sure. Well, no, there's no way of actually telling people. As soon as you start telling people something, they clam up. They already know the answer. So no, there's no way of telling people. What I found is that you simply just ask a question. Ask a question that they already know the answer to. So I usually start with something like, if we're out at night, I'd look at the moon and say, have you noticed when you look at the moon that the clouds close to the moon are all lit up, but the ones further away aren't? And I'll look up and go, yeah. We'll say, well, how is that? If the moon's 238,000 miles away, shouldn't all the clouds be lit up? And that's it. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I suppose so. Or during the day, you look at the sun and, you can see the light rays streaming through the clouds at angles,
right.
And you say, I wonder how that works, because if the sun is 93 million miles away, shouldn't all the light be parallel?
Right.
And they might come up with some, silly excuse, but you can go, oh, but it can't be the light filtering through clouds, because I've seen it where a plane is above the clouds and projects a massive shadow on the clouds or on the floor. Mm-hmm. So it must mean that the light is kind of diverging away from the plane. So yes, they can't really argue against that, and it usually just plants a seed. And if they're interested in it, then I point them towards a video or two, and usually I get somebody come back to me afterwards and say, "Wow, I just started watching this video, and the Earth's flat."
Oh, that's interesting. So you're just basically appealing to their own curiosity, their own inquisitiveness, and then kind of bait them to look, have reason to actually examine the video that you're sharing with them. That's that's a really ingenious approach.
Well, the fundamental idea of this is that we were told all this information about the round Earth, the spherical Earth, as children, at a time when our own analytical skills were still forming.
Right.
So essentially, we just non-existent in some cases, but we just accepted all this stuff without analysis, and we
it's
never
part
gone
of
back
our
to it
fabric now.
Yes, it formed the basis of our reality.
Yes.
So we never even bothered going back to it. But if you ever go back and ask those questions again, then the answers you get don't make sense.
Right.
And then you start, when you then find out that there's an alternative answer and you look into it, it's like, okay, I think I've been fooled.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
It was funny. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
It was funny to me. I was listening to a financial YouTube video today, and the guy, very smart guy, and he must have used on this planet in a financial talk about 7 or 8 times. And I thought, it's such a part of us that that's the word we'll use.
Yes,
I still find myself using it. It's so ingrained. I still have to catch myself and say, no, on this plane.
Can you talk about the open letter to Neil Tyson that you wrote, and some of the points that you bring up in it? Sure.
Actually, the letter to Neil deGrasse Tyson came out of my trip to see Milenko. Because, as I said, I had to come up with some points that I wanted to get across. So I had 12 main points and maybe another 8 points that I would sort of come out with if I had time. So I literally wrote all these things down, and while I had like a whole day and night before my appearance, and there was nothing on television or there was nothing to do. I didn't have my laptop with me or internet connection or anything, so I sat and I wrote out the questions out in detail, and when I came back I thought, I've got all these things, what am I going to do with them? So I thought I might use it, I might send it out as a letter to Neil deGrasse Tyson. Mm-hmm. So I wrote the letter. I wrote 2 letters to him. I sent it out on email. I wrote to his to Hayden Planetarium, and I did the video, thinking that at least one of those avenues will get to him.
Right.
I think a lot of other people mirrored that or did similar, asking the question. Did you get any replies?
Of course not. And one of the reasons why, I think, is because Neil deGrasse Tyson is an actor. He's an actor with a couple of degrees in astrophysics, physics or something. But he's essentially an actor. And it dawned on me that when I was being interviewed on television and by a doctor, and I got on well with him. And I thought, well, maybe I can have him on a YouTube video and we talk about alternative health. So I phoned up the production company, and the production company said, oh, well, I'll pass the message on to his agent. I thought, what? He's got an agent? He's a doctor, isn't he? It dawned on me that Neil deGrasse Tyson has an agent. And if Neil appears on anything, well, his agent wants to get paid for it. So any public appearance or any kind of appearance, he's going to get paid for it.
But he was in a few movies just this last year.
Of course,
he's been blowing up. Yeah.
He's an actor. So unless he gets paid to respond to those questions, which he won't do, because essentially those questions are trick questions, because they're all based on contradictions in their model. So if you try and answer it with a sciencey answer, you'll end up contradicting yourself in another part of the model. So the questions might seem very simplistic, but you try and answer them with the current model, and you throw up other questions.
Right. Reminds me of sort of like the questions that were posed to these astrophysicists for the principle. And then they had, in answering them straightforwardly, they had no idea that what they were doing is actually contradicting the whole heliocentric belief system that they've been perpetuating for so long.
Exactly. I mean, the best example of that is Eratosthenes, who calculated the circumference of the Earth using 2 sticks in the ground. The idea was that he put a stick in the ground at midday on Midsummer's Day, when the sun was directly overhead and the stick didn't cast a shadow. And simultaneously, somewhere 400 miles away, somebody did the same thing and found that that stick would cast a shadow. And using a bit of trigonometry, assuming the Earth was a globe, you can actually calculate the circumference of the globe.
And that's their proof to this day.
That's their proof to this day. Fair enough. I mean, sounds reasonable. But the only problem is that that method depends on the sun being a very, very, very long distance away.
Right.
So the light coming from the sun is parallel. But as I said a little while ago, the light that comes from the sun isn't parallel. So, it comes down at angles. So if you assume that the light's coming down at angles and you repeat Eratosthenes' experiment, then the calculation, because of this angled light, would mean the Earth is very, very small indeed. Mm-hmm. If you follow the logic, it's not the curvature of the Earth that's making that shadow. It's the fact that the light is angled that makes a shadow. So if you apply the trigonometry there, it will make the Earth very, very small. So when you start looking at that, then that opens up all sorts of other, it's a big can of worms, basically. How is the light refracted? How is the light doing that if the sun is actually 93 million miles away? How is it making these angles? So one answer is that the atmosphere is refracting the light, making it diverge like that. Well,
yeah, but then how do you see clouds behind the sun if it's 93 million miles away?
I have to take an issue with clouds behind the sun. I can't see how that would work if the sun was so far away.
Right. And then the other thing, which is just absolutely ludicrous, is the whole Cavendish experiment. But we'll talk about that when we return back. Be right back, everyone.
Okay.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. As far as the ludicrous nature of that particular experiment, it reminds me of the whole Cavendish thing, where they have, what is it, Kathy? Like a weight and something.
2 lead balls in a shed. Yes.
Yeah, and they're supposedly able to measure the weight of stars and massive objects and all of that. I mean, it's so ludicrous, but we have bought into it. Nobody second guesses it or questions it and just assumes that because it's all been scientifically affirmed and verified over the last 500 years now that these neoteric priests of Baal, that they know what they're talking about. And
there was an article on one of the last shows. It's raining diamonds on Jupiter, and rubies, and yeah, it was one article, 2 articles. And the cosmic dust. They found the dust left over from the origins of the universe on a flat in London.
It's shocking what they always come up with. Recently, I think they said something about they had discovered 2 Earth-like planets somewhere or something of that nature. But go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say, when they took pictures of Pluto not too long ago, apart from the fact that Pluto was drawn in in the planet itself, yeah.
Right.
Somebody I met at a talk I was giving about the flat Earth. His name's John. He got really excited after hearing the talk, and went off to sort of research for himself. And a week later, he contacted me and said, "I've just looked at the pictures of Pluto." He said, "How did they get the light to take that picture?" If the sun is just like a bright star, how did they get that bright, really well focused, that sharp image of Pluto? It's like, no, it's rubbish.
Right. And that's it's like it reminds me of the lunar module where they're taking photos of it landing on the moon for the first time. It's like, if that's their first time there, who's taking the photographs? I mean, do they send up a film crew beforehand in order to photograph the moment and to immortalize it? I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous.
They left somebody there, obviously, to film them taking off. Yeah. So it is ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. So let's talk about, now that you've been outspoken on this as topic, about the kind of reactions that you have met with. Are you, I know that in covering it myself, I've seen a grand awakening and certainly a lot of interest, especially by those that get over the initial shock of, oh, it's absolutely ludicrous, there's no substance to it, why even waste my time? But then when you actually look into it, spend a day trying to debunk it, well, then you find out really that we've been all lied to and have bought into that lie for so very long. And so but can you talk about that, what you see as far as the evolution of this as area of research, the response and the reaction that you've met with, and talking to people? I'm assuming you've spoken with people from all over the world now.
I have. Well, the thing that the sort of independent metric of this is just see how many YouTube videos there are. When I started looking at this, it seemed like there was only about 40 odd different videos out there. Now there's something like 6 million videos on flat Earth in the space of pretty much 2 years. And I think most of them appeared in that 1 year, 2015. But literally sort of went from 0 to 6 million in 2 years. That tells you how this is exploding. I had literally a really wonderful, amazing experience really when I was talking to four men about flat Earth. None of them had ever come across it before, and I got the whole range of reactions to that information expressed in these four men. So one guy just wouldn't listen. He was almost like he had his fingers in his ears going la 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 la. No, and he walked off. Didn't want to hear any more. Another was like, wow, yeah, I've never thought about it like that, and yeah, you know what, I've got loads of questions myself, and that makes sense. And another was like, was just sitting there going, but what about this? What about that? What about this? And literally, I had the whole range in just one instance. And what the reaction I've got from my videos has been quite amazing. I mean, I get like at least 8 or 9 emails a day from people who say, "I've just watched your video. It's amazing, and I've just, I've been looking at videos all day, and I can't stop now." Literally, it's ever since putting those videos out, I've had non-stop responses from people, and as you say, from all over the world. People who can barely speak English, have really tried to communicate with me, and not really say anything, but wow. So yes, it's the explosion that we've seen over 2015. Okay, if it continues, there won't be a household in the world that won't know about it, by the end of next year.
Hmm.
That's the kind of exponential change that we're seeing here.
Hmm. Yeah, it is definitely gaining momentum. Two questions for you with regard to this as research. Why, this was a question from the chat room, why do you think NASA is lying to us with regard to this? And I would add the rest of all the other space agencies as well, because in my opinion, they are all perpetuating this as lie. And then what do you see this as far, and if do you see this as being connected to New World Order in any way, and how?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's all connected, and it's not just the space agencies. I mean, it's the entire scientific community.
Yes.
But I see this as, the round Earth theory as part of a three-way operation. Basically, it connects with the theory of evolution and the Big Bang theory, and they all three combine basically to keep people thinking that they're insignificant, to hide the presence of the Creator, and I'll attest to it that it certainly hid the Creator from me, because I've been an atheist for 40 years, and and after seeing the Creator's fingerprint on the dome, I had no choice but to acknowledge the Creator exists, and it prompted me for the first time to actually read the Bible, and it's actually literally it's changed my life. I'm following the commandments now. I'm reading the Bible every Sabbath, and trying to live as the best human being that I could possibly be.
Wow, that's fantastic.
But that's the reason. They're trying to hide the fact that there is a Creator. They're trying to make you feel as though you're an insignificant a microbe that's on a speck of dust that's whirling through an infinite void of space, right? That you evolved by accident, chance evolution that means your life doesn't really matter. There are probably trillions of other life forms out in that expanding void, so your life doesn't matter. You're nothing special.
Right.
And because your body is still evolving, because obviously evolution just doesn't stop, then that means you're not perfect. And so your body is, it can be tinkered with by man to make it perfect. Yeah. So can all the plants and animals. They can be tinkered with to make them perfect, because they're evolving too.
Right.
But if you start to realize that this is it, there isn't space out there. There aren't other planets, aren't places that are like this anywhere else. This is it. This is the universe. If you know that, if you feel it like I do, deep in my heart, then you realize that every single life here is sacred. You're here for a reason. You're special. Yeah? And there are people out there, or should I say there are non-people out there who are trying to stop you from realizing that. And that's essentially the history of the world, is a group of non-people trying to affect the minds of the people, so that they'll go along with the agenda that will ultimately kill them all.
Right.
Or did I just say too much?
No, not at all. Our listeners are very familiar with the agenda, and I cover this in great detail in all of my work, and so no, you can speak as much as you want about all of that, because that's the truth of it. This is the reality of it, that once you do put in your time into investigating the esoteric and biblical and conspiratorial aspects of reality and what we're dealing with as world, there's an underlying truth which brings forth this story. And so, yes, this is the reality that we're dealing with. But
can I
also
throw
yeah,
in
go
that
ahead,
the one story that came out today? Obama signed the the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, and included in that is a bill countering Information Warfare Act. And if you read that, this is the U.S. Ministry of Truth has now been born. So that's your Christmas Eve, folks.
Yeah, U.S. Administration of Propaganda.
Yes,
But
fake news.
that's nothing new. They've been allocating money towards that kind of creating news and giving it to the mainstream presses to report as being factual and truthful for a very long time. Even under Bush Jr., they were doing all that. And but I wanted to ask you, Dave, if you had seen connections with this, the Darwinian heliocentric worldview, with the coming rise of the Antichrist as this, what I believe to be, they're going to, push forward the idea that these ancient aliens are our saviors and our creators, and that they're coming back to save us from ourselves.
Right. Well, yeah, I think it is all connected. But I think this is where I'll diverge from probably you and a lot of your listeners.
Mm-hmm.
That I don't think there's an antichrist coming. I think the Antichrist is Christ, to be honest.
Really?
Yes. From my the last 3 years of research into the Bible and human history, I've come to the conclusion that Jesus Christ or Yeshua or Yeshua or whoever, whatever you want to call him, is a creation of the Roman Catholic Church, and it is the grand delusion that most of us are under, because even if you manage to extricate yourself from the Christian faith, most people still want to hang on to Jesus, no matter what you want to call him. So yeah, it's that is what I think is the delusion that's coming. They're going to have their alien attack or the alien savior. It's one of those. But the point is, they've gone through a lot of trouble to implant in us the idea that there are aliens coming, and they're either going to save us or destroy us. And personally, I think Revelations, the book of Revelations, is the elite's roadmap of what it wants to achieve, whereas the Old Testament is the Creator's roadmap of what will happen. So that's what I think. But that's a lot of research.
Well, that's interesting, because most certainly we would diverge there. But so do you not believe that Christ as an individual, that he existed at all? I mean, do you not see the prophecies in the Old Testament, because there's like 200-300 of them, which tie to his incarnation and his actually being born of the flesh?
Well, first of all, I think there was a man, I believe he would be called Joshua or Yahushua in Hebrew, but he was a man, he was a prophet, he was somebody who went around saying, "Hey guys, go back to the law, go back to the commandments," right? But I think it was Josephus who actually said in one of his writings that there was a man of magical power called the Christ, who the Greeks call the Son of God, but his own disciples called the true prophet. That's what he wrote. And also Acts 2:22 says that there's this character was just a man who the Creator worked through, just like he did Moses. And that's what it says. It says it right there. But I can't remember your other question, actually.
Well,
so
I was
tied up in
asking
my
about
thought pattern.
because in the Old Testament it speaks about how, Yeshua historically,
Oh, yeah.
that he fulfilled many hundreds of prophecies which verified that he and the Father were one, that he was part of the pre-existent triune Trinity, the Godhead, and that he wasn't just another man. He was born of a virgin. That every aspect of his life was prophesied, even his death and his resurrection. But I'm guessing you don't believe the resurrection either.
Now, yes, I don't, because first of all, I approached this without any preconceptions. The only preconception I had was that the book was a book of fantasy fables and stuff. But I approached it with no preconceptions, and I had no dog in the race, anyway. So I was given all this information about how Jesus was prophesied in the Old Testament. So I started looking at them one by one. And when you look at the New Testament verse and then go and look at with the Old Testament prophecy, it didn't match up, right? Because the words, the verse that was taken would sound kind of right, but when you actually looked at the context of what that verse, how that verse was used, then it didn't refer to any Jesus or anything, or anybody in the future. It was referring to, and this is, I'm only I'm not being specific here, but it would refer to events of the present day, when it was used, and refer to either the children of Jacob or to King David. That was it. And again, I had no dog in the race. I'm looking at it. None of these prophecies matched up to what the New Testament said they were.
Well,
in some cases,
I would disagree, only because it does say in Isaiah that he would be born of a virgin, that he would be born in Bethlehem, that he would be of the tribe of Judah. I mean, and even so many things as far as his crucifixion, that his bones wouldn't be broken, that they would throw lots for
He wasn't
his
crucified.
clothes.
He wasn't crucified. He was hung on a tree. It says that 5 times in the New Testament.
Well, yeah, but crucified on a tree.
He was hung on a tree, just like all the Israelites. No, he wasn't crucified. It said he was hung on a tree, and that was a curse for an Israelite, just like it's a curse for the Israelites now who are hung on trees almost to this day. So it says hung on a tree. It never says anywhere that it was nailed to a cross. Yeah, if you have to go by the scripture, it says 5 times he was hung on a tree. You have to really stretch to make that mean he was nailed to a cross, right? If you look at the story of Judas, right? And I can't quote chapter and verse, but there are 2 stories on how he dies. 2 completely different stories on how he dies. So somebody's lying, right? As I said, you mentioned in Isaiah that it predicts that he'll be born of a virgin. If you look at that, right, it's like if you open up a book like Fight Club, and you open up on a random page, and it starts by saying, he said this and he said that. Well, you have to go back in that chapter to find out who he was. Right, so you go back and it will say Tyler Durden said this, and then after that it says he, and so you can figure out that that he is referring to Tyler Durden. Great. So that's what I did. I looked at the verse that supposedly predicted the birth of Jesus, and that's it said he would be born a virgin. And I went back And it turns out that no, it's talking about if we're talking about the same verse here, it's talking about a child that would be born in the days, a king, king of Judah, as a sign to him that his kingdom wouldn't be attacked by the kingdoms of Ephraim and Syria, and that prophecy was fulfilled in those days, and that's it. It doesn't refer to Jesus, doesn't refer to any time in the future. It just refers to that moment in time.
Well, we're not going to be able to.
That was debunked.
We've got 2 minutes remaining, but most certainly, we'll agree to disagree with that, because there's no way we could, even address this debate in 20 minutes in fully. But most certainly, in my research and study, I've affirmed the Bible to be prophetic, Old and New Testament, and
that might make a good show. Follow up.
Yeah.
Well, I actually I was asked that question on Facebook, and somebody said, what about this verse? And it was this particular verse we're talking about. And I actually, in real time, I went away for 20 minutes. I read the entire chapter, figured out what was going on, and I went back and I wrote a long response, laying it out. This is what it says. This is a verse. This is a chapter. Blah blah blah. And the response was the whole thread was deleted. Right? That's this is what I'm trying to say. The whole thread.
Well, I would be willing to do a show with you on this to talk about this more, because most certainly 20 minutes we're not going to be able to cover it in great detail. But it's an interesting. Mm-hmm. I most certainly don't agree with your viewpoint, but I respect your opinion, and we can talk more to see why it is you think that, and I can present some other information. So maybe somewhere down the line we can do a show on this, and actually, we'll talk about it in when I have time to actually know that we're going to cover it. We can both bring up whatever it is we would like to discuss on the show, and then go into it. I think that would be interesting. But in the last minute, if you would give out your website contact and where people can find your work and all of that information again.
Okay, my YouTube channel is dmurphy25, and my website is www.allegedlydave.com. And if anyone feels like they want to get in touch with me, I'm Dave@allegedlydave.com. That's basically it.
All right, brother. Well, we appreciate you coming on. Certainly interesting how, so many people can come to truth on this. But as far as, accepting that there is a creator, you said that that's greatly changed your life. What do you study now as far as affirming your faith? Well, we'll leave that for another
basically
time.
The Old Testament.
Just the Old Testament?
Okay.
All right. Well, God bless all.
Essentially. And
Thank you, Dave.
Be blessed.
You're welcome.